Welcome back to the Global Business Report here on Arise News. The Akwa Ibom Police Command have confirmed the arrest of a lawyer, Ekwere Sunday Ebong, after a viral video showed him physically abusing his wife. The State Police Public Relations Officer, Odiko MacDon, confirmed this in a statement Monday. They said the suspect was arrested based on the directive of the State Commissioner of Police, Olatoye Durosimi. So the question is, though, can economic empowerment end, or at least put a massive dent in domestic violence? That is the question that we're going to be trying to answer today. We've got two guests with us, Bisi Ajayi-Kayode, who is a legal lead and chief operating officer at the Cecelia Yara Foundation, and Chenaniah Bamishile, who is the founder of the Niah Foundation. You're both very welcome. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. So I wanted to get your take, I guess. What did you make of the role social media has played here in terms of bringing this to light, the reaction of the Nigerian Bar Association, since a lawyer was involved, and the reaction of the police?
Well, the social media succeeded in generating enormous awareness about the case to engage public interest and government scrutiny of the case, and to highlight the devastating impact of domestic violence, and it has brought it to light. So this is now a high-profile case, has generated public interest and increased awareness that this multi-headed dragon called domestic violence is still very much with us, which is very good. At least now we have a bumper-to-bumper follow-up of the case to access justice. Okay.
Chenaniah, what would you make of it?
I would say that it's done a lot to bring a lot of information, a lot of awareness to the issue. But aside awareness to the issue, the way this case is treated will serve as precedent for a lot of people knowing that, because there was a certain level of impunity that he acted with, that you'd see in the video, that he didn't care that he was getting recorded because he didn't expect any repercussions. He didn't care for what would happen. But seeing the way this case would be treated, the way he would be handled, the justice that the woman would get, will serve as an example to other people that are perpetrating the same, injustice, to say that, okay, you can actually get in trouble for this. There are actually real life consequences that you can face for doing similar things. So I think social media has gone really far, and this is one good thing that social media has done.
There's Nigeria's Bureau of Statistics had a survey in 2021 where there was a number of data points, and I want to get your take from the both of you. So I think we start with physical violence. 2013, they said 27.8 women between the ages of 15 to 49 experienced physical violence. That now went up to 31%. As far as sexual violence is concerned, it was 7.4% in 2023, jumping up to 9.1. Do you think these numbers are underreported, or what do you make of these numbers?
Yeah, they're quite underreported because most cases of gender-based violence, and because of the impunity, as you said, are often not reported due to a number of factors. I did a personal research, and even globally, global evidence has shown that 1 in every 3 women experience domestic violence between the ages of maybe like 17 to 59. So this is a far cry from the true picture of what is happening in our society. They are underreported.
I would say that I think it's grossly underreported. And why I would say that is because, one, what does it take for a case to be reported to say that this is a case of domestic violence or sexual, assault? One, in relation to sexual assaults or sexual harassment or sexual violence, there needs to be evidence, there needs to be proof. How often are you able to get proof? Because a lot of times the victim doesn't plan to get assaulted. So even if it's premeditated on the part of the abuser or the perpetrator, it's not planned. So there's no visual evidence a lot of the times. At best, evidence will be circumstantial. And so when you present this information, it doesn't make for a good enough case in court. So it can't be reported, it can't be listed. And in terms of domestic abuse, because there's a level of stigma that is attached to it, a lot of times lots of people don't speak up. And then I think also in relation to when people feel like classed women don't go through domestic violence, and it's because they're not saying they face me, I face you. So when they're being slapped or beaten, their neighbors can't hear. Sometimes with more empowered women, they're in their homes, their staff are not around, so nobody is hearing when they're collecting, and they can't come out because they're probably in high profile positions, or even their husbands are in high profile positions, and they are aware that this coming out about this type of thing could have implications on their finances, their social standings, and things like that. So they don't even come out. So lots of these cases don't even come to light at all. 4. So I think it's grossly underreported.
Okay, I do. There was something else the Bureau of Statistics brought out here, and I thought this was, maybe it's a cultural thing here. According to the MBS in this survey, 58% of women in Nigeria believe that violence against another woman is justified if she denies intimacy to her husband, and they say it is justified in their culture. Bisi, what is your reaction to this figure?
Well, this is unacceptable. One of the reasons why domestic violence has continued is because of the socio-cultural complexes attached to case reporting on gender-based violence, and this is often facilitated by the women. Because when a woman reports to an elderly woman, this is what my husband is doing, or to a religious leader, they tell you men are like that. Even to our own parents, and all the socio-cultural complexes, we've given you away in marriage. Oh, you don't look at it. It's a shameful thing to be a divorcee. I should think it's more profitable if you're alive than you being brought home in a casket to your parents. It's more honorable for you. I mean, enduring abuse is not a virtue. Suffering in silence is not a virtue. Nobody has the right to inflict domestic violence on the basis of unfulfilled sexual desires. I mean, these are just sporadic explanations. There are other undertones. The major cause root of domestic violence is the exercise of power, power influence. This is how I can show I'm more powerful than this person. This is how I can command by respect. This is how I can teach this person a lesson, overpower his or her will and mind and emotions without convincing a sense of judgment to be what I am. It's a dehumanizing incident. Because he or she becomes like a robot in the hands of the perpetrator. It is not justified. So religious leaders, family leaders, I mean, in all settings should stop this. And this is why there's lack of support for survivors. I say nobody will believe me. If I go to them, my parents said they will know if you divorce your husband or if you send your wife packing, what will people say? What of your own life? And then, you know, all this offensive explanation, forgive and forget. That is toxic forgiveness. Constantly perpetrating domestic violence on the part because you know he or she will forgive you due to religious or cultural dogmas is unacceptable. And they say allow peace to reign. There can be no peace where there is violence. Gotcha. And there's people, it's high time we start knowing the difference between peace and silence. Go to the morgue, go to the cemetery. It's not a peaceful environment. It's just that the people there are silent. They don't know their rights. And we have a victim of domestic violence is a living dead because you cannot actualize your fundamental human rights as long as you remain in that toxic relationship. Gotcha. So the earlier you break loose, the better.
Chenaniah, so what do you make of that number, that 58% figure? Could it possibly even be higher?
Oh, no, it's definitely higher. But what I would even say is that one, Nigerians in a lot of countries where there's like a high poverty rate, right? You see a lot of people who are highly dependent on religion and social culture and everything as a crutch. 60% of Nigerians are multidimensionally poor, right? So you can imagine how many people are using religion and culture as a crutch. So number one, when your pastor or imam is getting some level of sponsorship from your husband, if your husband is hurting you and you come to meet the same person that is benefiting financially from this man, obviously he's going to encourage you to forgive, forget, make peace, love and light. Same thing with extended families. When they know that they're benefiting, the only reason their daughter is eating, their grandkids are going to school, they are having food in their homes, is because this man is financing it. Their daughter on her own is not economically empowered enough, right? So they're going to tell you, go back home. Again, things like the stigma that it attaches or attracts, where you're like, what would people say? As Mrs. Bisi said, what are people going to say? How will people see us? Because again, the problem with just telling one side of the story, where people would just say, okay, they chased her from my husband's house. What happened? They don't know what, so people don't really know the full matter and everything. So all those pressures just keep people in those situations.
Okay, and then the narcissist strategy, because oftentimes, like you said, domestic violence is difficult to prove.
Yeah.
Because the victim often gets the blame. Oh, she's not patient enough. Yeah. She's not submissive enough. Yes. She's talking too much. Somebody is traumatized, crying for help. She has come again. She's not prayerful enough. And then the toxic sympathy that oftentimes the victim has for the perpetrator. If I expose him, he may lose his job. If I expose him or her, they will lose the respect. And they carry this from one generation to the other.
Okay, so on that note, he may lose his job, right? So he may lose his job. What about her job? I want to ask you both about empowerment initiatives to combat domestic violence, right? So I think it's a list of a long thing, but 3 items here: higher education, which would include access to that education, labor force participation, so on the job matter, women working one end, pay parity, so being paid equally. Is this, Bisi, is this a list exhaustive enough for you, or is there, what more needs to be done as far as economic empowerment?
First and foremost, legal literacy. You cannot enforce a right you don't know about. And then you cannot enforce a right when you don't have a social contract. The only right you can enforce is the one you have by virtue of a social contract with the society. You cannot enforce a right when you don't even know how to access the community resources. For example, at the Cecelia Foundation, we have our child helpline 0800-1. If you are not digitally literate, you don't even know how to use the phone, even if you are given one. How do you call for help? If you are not literate enough to know the support services, the nearest FSU, shelter, Ministry of Women Affairs, how do you enforce those rights? So this list is not exhaustive. And then, as part of the social support, social capital, before you go into a relationship, because oftentimes domestic violence arises out of intimate partner relationships. Before you go into marriage or you're living with somebody, there should be a psychosocial assessment of the two of you. Psychiatrists, marriage counselors should engage the services of family therapists and psychiatrists because of this narcissist that we all have around us. After beating the wife, they will just tidy up and say, "It looks innocent," and nobody would believe he or she had perpetrated such an abuse. So they will know the signs and how to get out of it. There should be prenuptial agreement before you go into it, because emotional trauma and psychological abuse is even more dangerous than physical abuse. So that that's why a lot of victims have suicidal additions. All those things should be there. Legal literacy, because if you don't have that legal and digital literacy, you cannot access the community resources available to you.
On the matter of, okay, actually, we were scrambling to get as many guests to come and talk about this, and I reached out to a therapist who was, unfortunately, she couldn't make it. Do we have enough therapists in Nigeria to, please, family therapists and psychiatrists we're talking about? Do we have enough of them?
So I'm a mental health awareness advocate, and that's what my NGO is dedicated to. So we're basically putting people in contact with the therapists on ground. One, we all know we're struggling with brain drain in the country. So skilled people are leaving by the second, right? And because they feel like they can't get their worth, you've gone to school for so many years and you can't get the worth of your education by when you help people here, so they're not getting paid, so they're leaving the country. To answer your question, no, I don't think we have enough people. And even the people that we have, because we all think, okay, yes, you're supposed to help people, but doctors have to eat and feed their families as well. So they can't just, a lot of them do a lot of social work where they partner with NGOs like we do and give some people services for free, but they can't do that for everyone. And not a lot of people can afford therapy. Not enough people can afford the help they need. When it comes to therapy and getting the help that they need, mental health has such stigma attached to it. If it's not stigmatized, it's trivialized.
Right.
So it's
you need to be tougher. You're not tough enough,
it's either of two extremes. When you tell people, okay, go to, because one of the biggest psychiatric institutions we have is in Yara, and the stigma of you are going to Yara left. When you're even driving on that road, you're a bit conscious. Like, let them not think I'm entering. Let the wrong person not see me entering there. But it's like you're getting mental health help that you need. When you're going to the hospital, you're not scared of people seeing you. So why would you be scared of people seeing you going to get the psychiatric help that you need? So I think there's just a lot of stigma attached to it. So it stops people from actually going to see these therapists, see these psychotherapists, psychologists, and all of that. So I don't think that there's enough people, and even with the people on ground, I don't think there's enough people taking advantage of the services provided.
Bisi, what do you think? So they're not enough as far
as
the jobs?
They're not enough, and then there should be increased awareness of the vital importance of psychological health, mental health. Because if we have enough awareness like we did on HIV/AIDS and COVID-19 on mental health, because mental health is interwoven with medical health. Most sicknesses people take to the doctors is it's arising out of the mental health damage, especially when the patient is not responding. So there must be increased awareness on the vital need of mental health. And then anybody intervening in any domestic violence issue, either as a landlord of the vicinity, the market women leader, should undergo training on psychological first aid, on how to handle and respond to cases of sexual and gender-based violence.
Yes.
That's why the Cecelia Foundation, we do both online and on-site counseling.
Yes.
For survivors of child sexual abuse and their non-offending families.
Yeah.
There is first-degree trauma.
Yeah.
There is second-degree, vicarious trauma, even those of us on the field. You hear about some cases, you wonder, is this a human being or an animal doing this to this person?
I want to get both your thoughts on this very interesting study from India. Lord knows I've talked about India's economy a lot, but let me make it social here. This was a study from Singh and Babar from 2022. They said domestic violence is more likely when men feel their dominance is challenged by a wife who earns more. They call it the relative resource theory.
Yeah.
And then there was another part of the study saying men in Indian society do not take kindly to their wives, invest any more money than they do. So if we're saying economic empowerment means that a woman who earns more money is able to escape a toxic situation, but yet you've still got this study from India saying, and I'm sure Nigerian men will probably So how is there a way out if there's more violence? Okay, you want to go first? Okay, go ahead. Yeah, please.
So, one, under domestic violence and abuse, there's 5 different types of abuses. Sexual abuse, there's physical assault and abuse, there's verbal, there's emotional, and then there's economic abuse. So when it comes to economic abuse, it comes in different forms, but it's a form of coercion and manipulation, which is when the women are empowered. They have jobs, they're earning well for themselves, but then one, it's either these men they're either borrowing or taking all this money from her. So, or she's spending all her money catering to the household, or she doesn't even have any money back up, saved, nothing. She can't invest, she can't do anything. It's just she's working to feed her and the children and family hand to mouth, and she's spent, right? There's situations where the man is destroying household items just so she's having to spend money and waste money on those things because he wants her in a position where she has the money but she's not empowered, right? We've seen situations where in organizations men have come in to make sure that the wife's salary is being sent to his account, right? Or he's the one that is accessing the fund. So once her salary goes in, he's taking it out straight. Do you understand? So there's a lot of challenges like that where when the man knows that, okay, a woman has gotten a promotion, she has more money now, that's when he wants to be hard on. Even if you have more money now, you must cook my food for me. You must wash the dishes. You must clean the house. You're not going to get a staff. You're not going to get a cook and nanny, nothing. You have to do it yourself. And the higher she goes, the more she's earning. She's taking on more responsibility in the office. So she may not have the capacity to do all those things in the household by herself, but they will emphasize that, no, you must be the one to do this. So this is going to have negative implications in her workplace, in her home, and how she's able to manage her relationships socially and around. And so economic abuse is a major thing. A lot of men are threatened by women that earn more because just by the way we're set up socially here is that you're supposed to submit, the man is to be higher. And I think it's just a fragile ego that feels like, oh, okay, if she earns more, she can't be higher, she can't respond to me, I can't control her, she can't submit. So it just is a problem. It definitely is a problem because and something I would say is that abuse is not about, and a person going through domestic violence is not about the woman, whether she's high earning, low earning, it's about the abuser.
Yeah.
An abuser is an abuser, whether you're earning nothing or you're earning a lot. An abuser is going to take advantage of any situation he's in to perpetrate the evil he wants to. So where I think solutions should come in from, where, yes, economic empowerment is always important. So because there's some people that can't leave the situation because they're financially dependent. There is definitely that situation. The stigma comes in more like high-end cases where they are earning more. But where there's it's based on finances, yeah, economic empowerment works. But I think another angle, which is where Ms. Bisi spoke on, is where more punishment in terms of implementation. And yeah, we have these laws in place. If you do this, you get this. Implement it. This man's case now, this barrister, if he's made a scapegoat, if they deal with him as he should be dealt with,
it will deter others.
People see that, okay, yeah, this is the consequence of this. This is how this goes. And it creates more awareness for that. So I definitely think on the male end, or not necessarily male, on the abuser or perpetrators end, it's very important to highlight punishment for them. Repercussions should be seen immediately. They shouldn't even take time. On the spot, you do this, you get this.
Gotcha. Bisi, please, your thoughts.
Yeah. Domestic violence is about power brokerage. A situation in which the abuser wants to inflict force, to destroy, to overpower the victim, to fulfill his own ego. So when a woman earns more than the husband, who is an abuser, he feels threatened. We've seen cases where the woman has more, but also because he's not an abuser, it's okay. He believes, well, this woman's success is my success. So we always advocate financial empowerment for everyone, because you cannot escape an abusive relationship. Because one of the characteristics of an abuser is because they are the financial pillars of the environment, of the society. So, and they always ensure that their victims are constantly dependent on them. If a woman gets promoted in the office, she starts making more money, the abuser will start insinuating, oh, she must have slept with her boss to get the promotion. If she wants to assert her dignity, don't dehumanize me, don't put me down. They say she's proud, she knows she's not submissive, she's offensive, and all that. So, financial empowerment is key. Is key, because you cannot even access justice when there's no financial. Where do you want to run to? When you don't have a roof over your head, you don't know where the next meal is coming from. You cannot even take your children away because you cannot maintain that standard of living you had with the abuser. You cannot go. So you cannot go seek for help outside that. So financial empowerment is key.
Thank you so much. We're rounding up just a minute of the tour here. As far as the awareness campaign, is it just on the side of government, or is it NGOs like yourself, private sector, media? Who does the responsibility fall on, really quickly?
I think it's joint. It's a joint effort. We can't leave the whole, assignment on the responsibility on the government to say that, no, they take care of it. They have a role to play in terms of policy making, implementation, support. There is a role to play. But NGOs also have a role to play in terms of like the Yara Foundation and what they do, where they're a one-stop house for like domestic violence help, women that have suffered from psychological help to just the legal support that they need, like Niah Foundation, where you come and we specialize on mental health. So after the abuse has been perpetrated, getting you the mental health resources to recover, to heal from this process, right? There's NGOs like Feminist Co, there's Sisterly HQ, where they provide resources for economic empowerment with or without domestic violence, where you can get the help you need. So I think all these NGOs play a role at different stages of this process to make sure that women are getting the help they need, people are getting the support they need, and then just down to the individual person, NGO, no government. If you hear that your neighbor is being beat up, you need to be able to come out and say, like, this wouldn't have happened, because this has been happening for years, and the neighbors knew about it. But with impunity. So if that person hadn't brought their camera to record and say, what are you doing, and confronting the man who was even ready to be violent to the person recording as well, to take that risk to say, no, we need to defend this woman, like people around you just supporting people and caring for basic humanity. We all have a role to play.
It takes collective action to address domestic violence. We know the government, they provide on the supply side, provide they make the laws, the policies, the support services, but then individuals, NGOs, religious organizations, down to the market women as first responders, we all have a role to play. You see something, you say something. You just don't say something, you say it to the right people who will harness the necessary. We need the laws and policies activated. We need to fast track access to justice, not for victims and not just for victims in the metropolis, in the suburbs. And we need information and awareness, and also budgeting and financing. For example, your neighbor is being abused, and you get that you don't even have the means of transportation to take her to the hospital to get the doctor's report, and then we need to be trained on evidence gathering, like we do forensic interview, crime scene investigation at the Cecelia Foundation. And you need to know the numbers to call. The media has a role to play. Then telecommunications, we provided the first children telecommunication platform, 0800, and it is so free. So people should know the numbers to call. So you see something, you say something. A single agency cannot handle it alone.
Thank you
and
so
then
much.
We need shelter services, vocational skills for survivors.
We got to run. Look, fantastic conversation. It's something that needs to continue. Mrs. Bisi Ajayi-Kayode, legal lead, chief operating officer at Cecelia Yara Foundation, and Chenaniah Bamishile, founder of the Niah Foundation. Thank you both for this great conversation. Appreciate your time.